Brahma Vishnu Gurudevo Maheshwara Gurureva Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Chinmayam Vyapyat Sarvam Trailokyam Sacharacharam Tatpalam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Tvameva Mata Cha Pita Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva Vidyad Ravinam Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. I can turn the fan on a little higher if you would prefer it. Choices?
I'm okay.
Yeah, I'm okay. All right. Leave it as you.
Are you hot?
Nope, I'm fine. Just asking. So, Mark, do you have it marked where we were last week, what we're starting on tonight?
We're starting chapter 6, verse 21.
Chapter 6, verse 21. Abhyasa Yoga, the yoga of meditation or the yoga of practice. Do you want to follow along with the text? Just grab one off the table if you wish. What page?
21, you said?
Yes.
Yes.
Would you like to chant?
Next time I can come prepared a little bit.
Next time.
Sukham atyantikam yatta buddhigraham yat matindriyam veti yatra na chaivyam sthita chalati tatavaha. When he, the yogi, feels that infinite bliss, which can be grasped by the pure intellect and which transcends the senses, wherein established, he never moves from the reality.
So, there are many expressions for this. One of my favorites, Atmaramana, reveling in the self, tasting, Brahmananda Rasa, tasting the juice or the bliss of Brahman. Why is this important? So let's review what happens when we dance with the world, people, places, things, and situations. I desire, that's uncomfortable. The more I want and the further away the object seems, the more painful it is. When desire and object of desire become one, for a moment, my mind has ceased its kama, its craving. And it quits that vikshepa shakti, that projecting power. It comes home. This is called the Anandamaya Kosha. Everybody experiences it when you satisfy a desire. The more you wanted it, and how much it satisfied your desires, how much joy you get. But the joy is not in the object. The joy is in myself. I just don't know it. So this is called a mediated experience of the bliss of the self. I have a medium. It's all I have, and I think it's in the object. I will get attached. And if I get attached, guess what happens?
Suffering.
Why? Because all of the objects, gross and subtle, are mutable, they change, they're impermanent. And on top of that, so's my mind. One chocolate brings you joy, eat the whole jar, and you want to vomit. I get the new car, then someone scratches the door. So it's, I like to say, 95 cents worth of work for a nickel's worth of joy. It's just inefficient spiritual economics. Now, what I really want is not the people, places, things, and conditions. I just use that to induce the mind state of the mind having let go, being open. Here, Krishna is saying it is possible to have a non-mediated experience of the same joy, an immediate experience. For most of us, first time we get it may be spontaneously watching a Ramana Maharshi video or reading a book or meeting a guru, getting tuned up, studying some scripture. So I can only share with you my own experience. Beginning when I first met Swamiji, oh, he's so brilliant. What he says is so incredible. And then after a while, I began to see, oh, he really just keeps saying the same thing over and over again in different words. Enormous patience. And I began to learn how to tune up, is what he called it, to tune into him. Oh, he was so he used to say, that's a borrowed glory. When I leave him, plonk, mind like a brick again. And then he would say, use the guru. You can tune up to me anywhere I am in the world. Just think of me. And after a while, I learned that I needed to get established in that myself. First in meditation, and then even when the mind is interacting with the world, He doesn't leave home. No longer inside or outside. And it's always available because it's myself. It's free. It won't rot your liver and it won't make you fat. Has no negative side effects. When the mind is attached to the world, we call it addiction. When it's attached to the self, we call it devotion. But in time, we begin to see there's nothing wrong with the world. I like to use the phrase trinkets and baubles. The world isn't bad. It's just void. Of course, most of our minds don't want to hear that. What about my important job? Boy. What about politics? Boy. What about my partner? That love I have? Boy. Yogi eventually lets go of all attachment, all identification. Then the mind easily revels in self. Here's a secret. Some people think I need to get rid of all my attachments. It's true and it's not true. The mind needs to be attached to something. The problem is when it's attached to the world, it's a recipe for suffering. When it's attached to the self, that's its true home. There's a very famous saying of the Christian Saint Augustine. Thou hast made us for thyself, O Lord, and our heart is restless until it finds its rest in thee. There's a very famous image in the Hindu tradition of Hanuman embracing Lord Rama. Have I shown it to you folks in this class before? I bet I can find it real quickly. Just give me a second here. Just take a second. Hanuman embracing Lord Rama. Yeah, this is one version of it. See it? Have you seen it, Mike?
Yeah.
And there's for the Zoomies. So Hanuman is the mind, and Rama's yourself. This is where the mind belongs. This is where it's full. This is where it finds its peace, its rest. It just takes us a long time, unfortunately, to figure that out. I keep thinking people, places, things, and conditions They're separate from me, and they have inherently joy-giving and misery-producing qualities. Mind goes out, fixate Shakti, it hurts. Mind comes home, done for you. Chidananda Rupaham, Shivoham, Shivoham. I am of the form of bliss consciousness. I am Shiva, auspicious. Now, I like to say we are not so much healed by what we turn from as by what we turn to. So, Mike, for those of you who don't know, is a former Franciscan brother. So when the young man came to the Master Jesus and said, Master, what is the greatest of the commandments? What's the answer?
Love God and your neighbor as yourself.
Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart and soul and mind and strength. The second commandment is like unto the first, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. That was Jesus' way of saying it. The first commandment, love God. Beginning, your idea of God. But then as you mature as a yogi, as a contemplative, the God you seek is your own self-nature. Love it. Revel in it. Now, some of the scriptures will say, well, I've read that you're supposed to give up the bliss of samadhi. That's true. Don't be attached to it. But you can't renounce something you don't have. I woke up this morning and I renounced being king of the universe. Yesterday, I renounced being president of the United States. Tomorrow, I'm going to renounce being the god Varuna. This is nonsense. You get rooted in samadhi. You develop the capacity to revel in your own self-nature. Any thoughts on this before we go on? Don't settle for less. Some yogis, they get what we call the paroksha jnanam, the indirect knowledge. Oh, samadhi is just a mind state. And you can tell it. Why? Because they still Jones for the world. My stock portfolio. I'm so lonely. Politics. Because when the mind is rooted in the self, when we drown the mind in Brahman, we soak the mind in Brahman. The world becomes little. It's there, you see it, the images go by. It doesn't hook us like it used to. Very important verse. Next one.
Yam labdva chaparam labham manyate nadhikam tatah yasminish yasminish yasmin stito na dukhena gurunapi vichalyate which having obtained, he thinks there is no other gain superior to it. Wherein established, he is not moved even by heavy sorrow.
So, to know who you are, you either see it or you don't. It's like when you look at the puzzle and the funny papers on the Sunday comic strips. Can you see the 20 bunnies in the picture? There's one. You know, it's like a optical illusion thing. You see it or you don't. You see it or you don't. That's, you either see it or you don't. But how deeply the mind can revel in the self, that's infinite. That's like trying to count to the highest number. There's no end to the waves of bliss that are available. Oh, you think you got it now? Okay. Time. Just keep on. Keep on. It's richer. And the yogi begins to see that the joy you get through the world, it's so little and it's so fleeting. His mind or her mind continues. It's deep immersion. One of the things the Master Jesus said is, I have overcome the world. That's my interpretation of what he meant by it. And then he said other things like, my kingdom is not of this world. It doesn't mean he got on a jet and went to another country or got on a rocket and went to another planet. No. It means I have a different playground. My playground is Atmanamana, reveling in the self. I'm asleep to the stuff of the world. They are awake to all that, and they have no idea that the bliss of Brahman is available. That's the great paradox. And I talked last week about the cosmic teeter-totter. The more I'm attached, the more I'm controlling mind, the more I'm protecting, defending, etc. The less my peace, the more I let go, the more I abandon greater. You choose. Next verse.
Tam vidyad dukha yam yoga viyogam yoga sang yoga sangityam sa nishchena yoktavyo yogo nirvina chetasa. Let it be known, the severance from the union with pain is yoga.
So he's playing with words here.
This yoga should be practiced with determination and with a mind steady and undespairing.
I'm sorry, that's what that was. So the severance of the union with suffering, with pain, which is a poetic way of saying, how do I yoke the mind to the self? No. That's very easy. Let go, let go. Be a tyagi. What is tyaga? Anybody know what that word means in Sanskrit? No. Abandon. Usually we think of sannyasa as renounce. Tyaga means to abandon. So if you've ever been around toddlers when they're like around 2 and they're playing with a bunch of stuff and they're so engaged with their cardboard box, and then something else attracts their attention and they go, ah. What do they do with the toys in the box and stuff like that?
Abandoned.
Absolutely gone. Mummy comes along to clean it all up. So the mind of the yogi, when she's engaged in the world, the totality of her attention is there. Then when something else comes before her, gone. Abandoning the world. Let it go. If, on the other hand, I engage in what's called chintya. In Hindi, it means worry. But in Sanskrit, it has a subtler meaning. It's after the fact mental rumination, either positively or negatively, on a person, place, thing, or situation. So you go to Guru Curry House, and on the way home, oh, golly, that was such great food. I love their mushroom tikka masala. I wonder what their chana masala is like. You're after the fact, ruminating over it. Guess what's going to happen? Ooh, I want to go to Guru Curry House again. Let's go on Wednesday. You get there. Oh, you're closed on Wednesday. Suffering. Small, but you get the idea. And the same thing happens with something negative. I'm never going to do that again. There's a marvelous story in Yoga Vasishta about Prahlada, the king of the demons. And the demons were in their perpetual war with the Devas. Devas are like demigods. So you've got the Asuras, the demons, versus the Devas. Fight. So Prahlada says, I know what to do. So he creates 3 super demons. And they are without ego. So they engage in battle with the Devas and they're whooping their butts. So the Devas go, oh, what are we going to do? So they go to Brahma, the creator, and What are we going to do? What are we going to do? Ramaji says, engage them in battle and then feign retreat. Pretend you're retreating. Do it several times. So they did. And these super demons engaged in Chindya. Look at us. We're beating the Devas. We're so powerful. And as soon as they engaged in Chindya, ego formed in their minds. Once ego formed in their minds, fear arose, and the Devas could beat him up. Prahlada, he's upset at this. He says, okay, I'm going to show you. So he creates Asuras 2.0, Super Demons 2.0, Terminator 2s. They too are without ego, but they are also Shrotriyam. Literally, it means well versed in the scriptures. What it means in the story is they had the tools to see what was happening when ego arose and began to let it go. So the Devas tried the same thing. Oh, you've beaten us. Run, 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 run. Oh, you've beaten us. Run, 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 run. The Terminator 2 demons did not allow Chindya to take place. They did not develop ego, so they could not be defeated. So the Devas, we're screwed. So they go see, I think it's Vishnu, either Shiva or Vishnu. What are we going to do? And Vishnu says, only I could solve this problem. So he comes down and wipes him out. But the demons were enlightened beings with no ego. So they were liberated. Now the balance of the war in heaven was reestablished. Asuras and Devas fighting on equal terms. It's a wonderful story. So we have moments of being egoless when you're listening to music, when you're dancing, when you're engaged in cooking something, when you're making love. But what do you and I do? Same thing as the first super demons do. After the fact, oh, that was so marvelous. Oh, that was just fabulous. Which makes me want to do it again. And then I-ness and minus forms. And I'm just. But if I'm Shokti, meaning I have the yogi's bag of tools, he cauterizes. I'm not going to believe you. No, I'm not going to let my mind return to the past. Om Namah Shivaya. Or even better, bring my mind into the present now. I finished with the restaurant and now I'm just walking down the street, enjoying the beautiful view. Wonderful, wonderful story about how not to get caught up and how to stay in the Atmana. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
Sankalpa prabhava vanakam sthitva sarvana sheshatah manasaiveldriya gramam viniyamya viniyamya samantatah. Abandoning without reserve all desires born of sankalpa and completely restraining the whole group of senses by the mind from all sides.
Are there several of them together?
There's two of them together.
Take the next one as well.
Let me read both in English and then, or let me read the second one in Sanskrit first.
Whatever.
Shaneha Shanerupar made the Buddhya Tritigratya Atma Samastham Manaha Kratva Kinchidapi Chintayeta. Abandoning without reserve all desires born of sankalpa and completely restraining the whole group of senses by the mind from all sides. Little by little, let him attain quietude by his intellect, held firm, having made the mind established in the self, let him not think of anything.
Yes. So, what do? Let go of this projecting tendency of the mind. Here he's using the word sankalpa. Almost impossible word to translate. Wish, will, thought, intention. Here it means I'll be happy when, it'll be better if, more, better, different. So here, abandon it. Let it go. At least whatever is problematic in your life, put it on the shelf during meditation. Trick you could use is I'll deal with it 20 minutes later when I come back. For now, abandon all that wishing, willing, intending, thought, and withdraw my attention from the sensory end. Now, this doesn't mean you need to spend $90 and go be in, right? They call them, I think, samadhi tanks now, sensory deprivation tanks. You know, where it's 98.6 degrees water and it's all sealed and you can't hear anything or see anything. That's not what he's talking about. We all have the capacity to do this. I remember as a boy, I loved to read, and I was really into science fiction. So I'd be curled up on the couch, deep into a book, and my mother would call us all to dinner. I didn't even hear her. I had a bumble, that's what they used to call me. It's dinner. Any of you ever had that? You've been, some of you who are computer people, just deeply into a program and you lose track of what's going on around you. Who's had that experience? This is the uparati. This is the sense withdrawal. This is the pratyahara, the sense withdrawal. It's accomplished by our point of attention. At the beginning, last three stages of yoga, Patanjali says, we have dharana, concentration, practicing bringing the mind to a single point. Then comes dhyan, meditation. Meditation that he's suggesting here is the same one that Ravana Maharshi is suggesting. Koham, who am I? This radical reversal of the attentive faculty. Investigate what is my essential nature. I am not the body, I am not the prana, not the feelings. Space between my thoughts. Attention introverted. This consciousness. Sangoham, Sangoham, Sangoham. Unattached to mind again and again. Satchidananda Rupaham. I'm of the form of existence, consciousness, and bliss. Ham eva ham. Yayaha. I am that I am. The mind starts thoughting again, no problem. Just bring it back to your point of attention. Get some quiescence, some space between the thoughting. Bring your attention back. Allow the mind in the sun. Over. Now, in a 20 or 30-minute meditation, if you can have moments, real quiescence, Swamiji used to say, depth of meditation is more important than length of meditation. Practically speaking, unless you're adept at meditation, it will probably take at least 20 minutes for your mind to settle down. You haven't worked up to 20 minutes of meditation, you're still a beginner. Some of us like to meditate half an hour, 40 minutes an hour. Some of us may do half an hour, 40 minutes more frequently during the day, 2 or 3 times a day, maybe. Maybe you go on a retreat where you spend hours a day in meditation. You give a self-directed retreat at home. Any thoughts on this?
Jim, sometimes lately it seems like when I first start meditating, the mind is very quiet and then it gets busy. Just, that's what's happening now?
That's just what's happening, meaning these layers of the unloading of the unconscious. You know, you hear the classic metaphor of the peeling of the onion. So when we're in a meditation period, no judgment. Just don't do something. Sit there.
I can't tell you how many times I tell myself that in a day.
Well, you know.
It's helpful.
It is. Take it easy. Hasten slowly. Don't sweat the small stuff. It's all small stuff. Next verse.
Yato yato nishchati manaschachalam sthiram tato niyam 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 niyach niyam ye man manyeva vasham niyet. From whatever cause the restless and the unsteady mind wanders away, from that let him restrain it and bring it back under the control of the self alone.
So there are various ways to do it. If you're doing like a Vipassana meditation, you can bring it back to your breath. Or if you're going on a Goenka kind of meditation, you can scan the body. If you're using japa, you use your mantra just to bring your mind back to it. Or you can hang with the question, to whom did this thought occur? To me, who am I? Again, was Bhagwad's technique. Don't let your mind frivolously get caught up with the theme of its thinking. It's a razor's edge here because we don't want to suppress. But it does no good, for example, to go causation hunting. Let me see if I can give you an example. You're sitting in meditation, and all of a sudden, sadness arises. Then your intellect's going to go, what am I sad about? Was it my mother? Was it Johnny in the fourth grade? Was it the failure of that relationship? Maybe it was a prior mind. You know that tendency in the mind? Useless. Sometimes an event will happen. Sometimes the stuff that's coming up is when we are a pre-verbal infant. You don't have to have a story. Just be present to the feeling. Sometimes you'll get a story. You'll never know for sure if that's really why you're sad. It doesn't matter. Let's be present to the material. But be wary of causation hunting on that stuff. Don't suppress. What he says here, whatever direction the mind goes, bring it back. If it's a vicious thought, bring it back. If it's a virtuous thought, bring it back. If you see erotic images, bring it back. If you see Lord Krishna, bring it back. Thought, feeling, memories. Those things bring the mind back. Any thoughts on this? Isn't this great stuff? You know, all the psychotherapists are mindfulness training. It's the brand new thing. And this is what, 2,500 years old? Maybe 3,500 years old?
I love, it's like what you were saying to Nikhil earlier, keep it simple. It's so simple. It's just the practice. It's not always easy, but at least we know what to do.
And I really appreciate the not judging piece.
Yes. Yes. Say that again so it's loud enough for the.
I really appreciate the not judging piece.
Yeah.
Saturday morning, I redecorated my bedroom.
In your mind?
In my mind. My entire meditation was redecorating the bedroom. Why, I don't know, and I don't need to know why. And I fought it. Well, I fought. I tried real hard to watch it all go by.
Just don't get up.
Yes, I didn't do anything.
Just sit there.
Yeah, today was good.
And it'll go through waves. I'm of the opinion that those gnarly meditations, where there's all sorts of material and thoughts and feelings and stuff like that, are actually the more useful. Because that's when, it's what the technical term is called kashaya in Sanskrit. Thomas Keating calls it the unloading of the unconscious. So whatever's in there just starts to arise. Wherever I'm restless, discontent, it starts to arise. And you don't need to worry about what form it takes. Just don't put any weight in it. I'm not making it up. This is what Krishna says. Next verse.
Prashant manasam hyonam yoginam sukham rittamam sukham muttamam upeti shantarajasam brahma bhutamapkalasham. Supreme bliss verily comes to this yogi whose mind is quite peaceful, whose passion is quietened, who's free from sin, and who has become Brahman.
Yes. So, in the beginning, it may be about energy. Oh, I'm seeing stuff, but it'll calm down and be supreme peace. And here, the scripture says, you become Brahman. Actually, language fails us. We realize we've always been Brahman. I was watching a YouTube video of this Chinese fellow, and he went for one of these genetic testing things, and he was only like 80 or 90% Chinese, and going through some of the things. And then it says, and you're 4% Korean. Korean! It's very funny. You know. He always was 4% Korean.
Oh, wow.
He just didn't know it.
Metaphor.
Yeah. My family, my mother always told us that she thought she was part Sioux Indian. She had high cheekbones. She looked like an old squaw as she got older. I gave Ancestry.com, the genetic thing, to my brother about 10 years ago. Had it all done. Not a drop of Native American blood. Not a drop. You don't become it. You just realize. So I had a superimposition. We were part Native American. But it wasn't true. Not at all. So also you and I think I'm a person. I am a body plus a personality. I was born here. I have these skills. I've done these terrible things. I've done these really good things. It's a lie. It's the truth. Aham Brahmasmi. I am Brahman. Don't become it. Realize what you've always been. Now, if I had applied to the government to get benefits for being part Native American, I could get arrested. It's not true. So false knowledge can get us into trouble. Likewise, if I think I'm my body, or my body plus the personality, I can get into trouble. And I saw. But I've created a box in which I live, which isn't real. It's a hallucination. It's false assumptions. All of it. But we need to have the direct experience of the illusory nature of the ego. What we were talking about earlier. Ego isn't bad. It's just not you. I always think of the person who runs around carrying a large clay pot. What are you carrying the clay pot for? Shut up, I'm a clay pot. No, you're carrying a clay pot. No, I'm not. I am a clay pot. That's crazy. You're not a clay pot. I am a clay pot. Leave me alone. I'm broken. I'm broken. No, you were never a clay pot. You're just carrying the damn thing around. You were never your body. You were never your personality. You just thought you were. Now, this is like hypnotism or like a dream. It's very vivid. It's a very long and very vivid dream. But when you wake up, where does the dream ego go? All right, next verse.
Yunajjana evevam sadatmanam yogi vigatkalam shaha sukhena brahma samshaparasamtyanam tyantam sukhaman. The yogi engaging the mind thus in the practice of yoga, freed from sins, easily enjoys the infinite bliss of Brahman contact.
So, when we say free from sin, papa, we have these two terms in Sanskrit, papam and punya. At an exoteric level, we think of papam, sin, in a more juridical sense, like traffic cop. Oh, I touched a dead body. I'm now ritually impure. Oh, a woman's menstruating. She can't go into the temple. You know, this sort of stuff. That's not what it means. Any thought or action which serves to grossify the mind is papa. Any thought or action that serves to purify the mind is punya. Now, let me give you an example how this can shift. So, someone starts meditating, they start coming to class, they're a Westerner, and they grew up eating meat. And they get an idea. Oh, I want to be pure. I'm going to give up meat. And then they try to give up meat. And they spend all their time thinking about hamburgers. And they can smell the fried chicken. And they're jonesing. Just a Reuben sandwich, for God's sake. So their effort at punya is in fact papa, because it agitates the mind. What's more likely to happen? Don't worry about it. Try just lightening your diet a bit. Meditate, 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 study scripture, come to satsang. I've seen this so many times, then 6 months or a year later. Jim, I didn't even realize I'm doing it. I've just, my whole diet's changed. You know, I'm just eating lighter because I feel better. Who's had that experience? Yeah. So what was punya has become papa. I see this in the recovery community. You start with putting the plug in the jug. Don't do any drugs. Don't drink. But what about sugar and coffee and smoking cigarettes? Don't worry about it for your first year. After a year, things start to fall. So we can look at papam from that viewpoint. The more you engage in the spiritual life, naturally, your behavior starts to change. I was talking with a student that I have who, for years, got his ego strokes. He's really smart, of being able to be quick-witted and say cruel, cutting things. Then everybody would laugh. Have you ever known people who were like that? Mm-hmm. And now all of a sudden, he's seeing the suffering he causes. He says, I don't want to do it anymore. I can't stop myself there all the time. But he's developed the desire to let go of it. It's happened naturally. Now, listen very carefully. Nobody's equipment is ever completely free from papa. Why? Because it's finite. How can you expect the infinite from a finite piece of equipment? But you are the Shuddha, transcendently pure. The self is never touched. So, Krishna will say when he talks about samadrishta, this equality of vision, the yogi's mind is the same in heat and cold, pleasure and suffering, honor and dishonor. Notice he doesn't say you won't ever get dishonor again. You are going to, in the eyes of the world, make mistakes. Oops is one of my favorite prayers. But the self is never touched by by any of it. Now, this is not a rationale for bad behavior. I have been told, I don't know if it's true, that one of the last teachings of the Buddha was good manners is far superior to enlightenment. Don't be a jerk. It goes a long way. Yeah. Don't be a jerk. And we find things shifting. Maybe you were a hustler in business at one point in your life and you cut corners and maybe weren't totally honest. And then as you do yoga, all of a sudden, those same behaviors are a burden on your heart. Not uncommon. Not uncommon. So there's two ways to look at this verse. This work does purify our equipment by grace. But the other meaning of it is you are already pure. Neither sin nor merit touches you. Any thoughts on this? Next verse. Wait, let me try. Want to try one just to see how you do?
Okay, sure.
No judgment here, honestly.
Sarvabhutas thamanam sarvabhutani chatmani ishite yoga yuktatma sarvatra samdrashna.
Very good. And the English?
With the mind harmonized by yoga, he sees the self abiding in all beings, and all beings in the self, he sees the same everywhere.
Yes. Yes. Lord must think that's a good one for you to have read. So what's it mean? We deal with three questions in this work. The first, most importantly, Koham, who am I? But the second question is, what is this world? And we get two apparently contradictory teachings. Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. Brahman alone is real. The phenomenal world is an illusion. Mithya, literally a lie. But Chandogya thunders, Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. Sarvamidam, all this, Kalu, verily, truthfully, is Brahman. Well, make up your mind, Jim. Is it an illusion or is it Brahman? Yes. So the practice, after we get rooted in this idea, I am that witnessing consciousness, now I endeavor to see the self in and through the world. This is a meditation you don't do just in your meditation seat. It is largely done in the world. And the deep meaning here, if we go to the world of imagination and the world of the dream, this becomes very clear. Close your eyes and visualize an elephant. Now, open your eyes. It appears like two. I see the elephant of my imagination. But it's not real. Mithya, illusion. But what is the material cause of the elephant of my imagination? Well, it's my mind. mind had this incredible ability to fork. I, Jim, see the imaginary elephant. Now, if I dream about an elephant, there's a similarity with the fancy, there's a difference. The elephant of my dream is just as much a product of my imagination. It's not real. Just my mind appearing as elephant. But I have the additional element of ignorance in the dream. I have lost my apprehension of myself as the waker. Then I have the subsequent misapprehension. I think the elephant is real. This waking state world is no different. The only difference is what we do in the dream. So the name and form of everything is nitya. They're like a hologram. But what's really there is Brahman, consciousness alone. So what's the practice that's implied? Dial down our reactivity to the world. Let it go, let it go, let it go. Detach, acceptance, surrender. These are all ways of trying to get at the same thing. Let go and let God. Take it easy. And I promise you, as the mind quietens down and we have manasaha, thinness of mind, the world starts to appear more and more transparent, more and more dreamlike, insubstantial. There is something there. Now, we have a practice similar to this in the Christian tradition. For example, Mother Teresa of Calcutta took on the practice of serving the poorest of the poor, the most wretched of the wretched. And that was gross. But her practice was to see Christ in every one of those people. And I think Francis had a practice similar to it, didn't he, Mike? Would you share it with us?
So Francis will say, when he explains his conversion, he will say the people who are the most disgusting to him were lepers, because they smelled, they had open wounds, they were contagious, they were just nasty. And when he embraced one, he says what was bitter became sweet, and soon after that he left the world.
So we learn to lean into our aversions. Let go of our attachments. Ego says, run from my aversions, clutch at my attachments. Dial it down. Because it's all God. It's all unfolding just as it's supposed to. Most of us believe in God, but unfortunately, we think he's an underachiever because he's not doing it my way. All right, we'll end here tonight. What verse are we on for next week?
We just did 29.
So 30 for next week. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Sri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om.